What's up, everybody? Talk about a couple things, all based around economics. Actually, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to talk about a couple controversial things, actually. Start off with, I work at a truck. I've never been shy about that, so you all know that if you've watched my videos. One of the things in this industry is driver pay is a problem. But a lot of people think that driver pay, when you talk about driver pay, that you're only talking about company drivers. And it's really not just about company drivers, it's about owner-operators also. And it's something that I've thought about for a long time. And I'm finally starting to wrap my head around it. I had to really start thinking about it. I haven't worked in corporate America for well over a decade. I mean, I've worked for, I've worked for a couple companies that, they're incorporated, but they're not corporations like what we think about when we think about Nestle or JB Hunt or Schneider Trucking or Martin or Walmart. They're not these big corporations. It's probably been about 20 years since I've worked in a really big corporation. That's when I used to be a loss prevention manager. And I worked for a really big company. It was an international company, and I worked for one of its subsidiaries. But even still, in the whole umbrella of the thing, I was really high up there, so they taught me a lot. And so I had to go back all the way back to that to really think about the whole issue with what would be the real problem with bringing a driver minimum wage into the trucking industry. Because the trucking industry is very different from a lot of other industries. It's different. It's a whole nother animal. But some of the corporate finagling is the same. And so I was thinking about it. We're having this problem right now in the trucking industry where drivers, as company drivers, the corporations, as well as the mom and pops, but the mom and pops are caught up in this because the corporations are driving it. But corporations are saying, we can't afford to increase pay because rates are so low. Part of the reason rates are so low is because of the way the tax code is written. And we'll get back to that. I'll explain that to you in a minute. But it's because of the way the tax code is written. And that is why we can't get a minimum wage into the trucking industry. Now, I hate having government involved in anything, but the government has put us in this situation where for the next 2 or 3 generations, we're stuck under this whole mess that the government has made. There's an irony to that, though. Notice I said it was 2 or 3 generations. I want to explain that. And then I'm going to go back to explaining about the driver minimum wage. The reason we're stuck in this for 2 or 3 generations is right now we're in a really ironic time. And it's not the first time we've been here, but it's the first time we've been here with this social media, where people can talk about this, and people with understanding from being in that world, even though I didn't get rich off of it, but I was around those kind of people, and I understand how that works. But there's an irony here. Right now, the rich are getting richer on such a fast scale because there's so many people in the world. The irony is, which is really funny when you think about this politically, my parents' generation and their parents' generation tended to have multiple kids. My generation, it's kind of a mixed. You have some people that, they have one kid, and you have some people that, in the same family. You can have a family where, like me, I come from a really big family because I'm still the remnant of that. I'm the fallout of the baby boomer generation. So in my family, I have relatives that have no kids. I have relatives that have one kid. I have relatives that have 2 kids. I come from a family of 3 kids. And then I have other relatives that they got 6 or 7 kids. But the funny thing is, my nieces and nephews, they tend to have 1 or 2 kids or no kids. All my kids have no kids. All my kids have no kids. I have three daughters. None of them have children that I know of. I'm not in contact with one of my daughters, so it's possible she might have kids. I don't know. That's a story I don't feel like getting into right now. But as far as I know, she doesn't have any kids either. So none of my kids have kids. And that's the common now. That means that my grandchildren are actually going to start climbing the economic ladder faster than myself and my own children, because there's going to be less people in the world. And their kids, let's say most of them don't have kids, or the majority of have one kid. You have a rare majority that has more than one kid, and then you have probably a larger majority that have no kids. Population is still going to get smaller. So my grandkids are going to have a great financial future. In all honesty, what do we have in the world now? 7 billion people, I think. Within 2 to 3 generations, we're probably going to be back down to 4 to 5 billion people. And if the trend keeps following, we're probably going to hit a point where we might get down to 3 billion people in the world within 3 or 4 generations. So the wealth shift that's going on now is actually going to reverse. It's really got wealthy people running in a panic. They don't know what to do, because first they started throwing this whole thing about overpopulation, and now they're panicking because they're realizing that their whole wealth legacy is in jeopardy. But that brings us back to the owner, operator, and drivers. because of that whole panic that's going on because of what they know. That's why our tax code is written the way it is. Because these big corporations that are out here, I know it's kind of bouncing around a little bit. I'm sorry for it being confusing, but if you go back and you watch this again, hopefully it won't be as confusing as what I think it sounds. There is a meaning to all this. These big corporations pay lawyers to write all these tax laws. Then they pay lobbyists to push all these tax laws in Washington, D.C. and other places around the world. Britain be one. Germany probably be another. You know, any place that believes in the free market, supposed free market. We don't live in a free market system. A lot of that's the biggest challenge we face right now is a lot of people from my generation and even more people from my children's generation feel the free market failed them. The free market has not failed us. The free market has been hijacked by crony capitalism that is being touted as the free market. And it's not being touted as the free market by just the left. A lot of you are going to say, oh yeah, you go all mention CNN and MSNBC. I got news for you. Fox News is pushing this whole we're in a free market system as well. We do not live in a free market. We do not live in a free market. In all honesty, we live in a quasi-fascist free market. A lot of people equate fascism with the Nazis. Understandably why? Because Hitler was a fascist. But Hitler was a different kind of fascist than most fascists. Like Mussolini. Not saying Mussolini was a good man. I'm not saying that at all. But the irony is, Mussolini and people like Mussolini, they were fascist, built on that one leadership whole, that side of it. But it's also the economic side of it. And it's really the economics that makes fascism. I mean, the difference between fascism and a dictatorship is the economics. I mean, that's really all fascism is. It's a dictatorship with a different kind of economics than a dictatorship. And that's what really makes fascism, is the economics. And like I said, Hitler, their economics were fascist. Their political system was fascist. But their racial view through the SS, that was just something totally different. So, if you really want to understand fascism, you gotta study the economics of fascism. And what we live in here in the United States, and what most of the world is going through, despite what anybody will tell you, I don't care who they are. There are very few news networks out there that will tell you the truth about this. Fox News will not tell you the truth. CNN will not tell you the truth. The Real News Network, which I love the Real News Network. They're one of the ones I don't agree with everything that they say. There's actually a lot of things that I disagree with them on, but at least they're being honest. And other news networks around the world, like Sky News, and definitely the BBC, and I read a lot of different newspapers. I can't even think of the newspapers off the top of my head, but I read a lot of different newspapers when I get the chance from all over the world. I read newspapers out of Japan that are available in English. I read newspapers out of Germany that are available in English. I read newspapers out of my father used to watch news all the time, and it's one of them things that rubbed off on me. So I think that was one of them things where, you know, he's definitely better at, because he was more up in with the world events. But I have an ear to it all the time. I always have my ear listening to what's going on around. Most of the news, when I want to know what's going on in America, I don't listen to American news. When I want to know what's going on here in America, the foreign news outlets are my best option. Because if I listen to Fox News and I listen to CNN, then I got to splice it all together, and I got to say, okay, this is what's all in common between the two. So there's the truth. This is their viewpoint, and this is their viewpoint, but these couple little facts here, that's the truth. But then when I listen to foreign news, and I see those little facts there, but then everything is building off of those little facts, then I'm like, oh, so that's the whole picture. But, I went off track. I went way off course. But I was saying what nobody's going to tell you the truth about. Oh, but we live in a quasi-fascist economic system. Basically, our government, instead of taking over the corporations, they're picking the winners and losers. That is something that, ironically, both Fox News and CNN admit. When it fits their narrative, they'll twist it to whatever way they need it to twist. But they both admit that the government is picking winners and losers. And that's the truth. And that brings us back to our tax code. Which brings us back to why in the trucking industry right now, the trucking industry isn't fighting for a driver minimum wage, even though it's beneficial to the corporations. It actually is beneficial to the corporations right now to fight for a driver minimum wage because of our situation going on with rates. The reason they're not fighting for a driver minimum wage, and the reason the ATA, which is nothing but a lobbyist group for the corporations, supposed to be the American Trucker Association, has nothing to do with the truck driver like me. OOIDA actually is more. When I first got into it, I thought OOIDA was a union, and because of my experiences with union, I wanted nothing to do with OOIDA. But over the last 2 or 3 years, I found that I actually have more in common with OOIDA than I thought. That's OOIDA, Owner Operator Independent Driver Association. But the reason they're not fighting for a driver minimum wage is because it's counterproductive to what they're doing right now. I don't agree with AOC on almost anything at all. There was one thing that I agreed with AOC on, and it was when she fought Amazon in New York with these major tax subsidies. And our reasoning is very different. We had very different reasoning for why we did this, but the argument still came down pretty much the same, ironically. And it's because this tax subsidy is unfair to the mom and pops all across New York City. It's unfair to all the average taxpayers in New York City. Because you're giving these companies these subsidies to bring in jobs. Here's the dirty secret. When, let's say, a major, I'm not going to call him out by name. Notice the smiley face. But let's say a major corporation comes in and it wants to bring in a super center of some kind or another. And it says, oh yeah, we're going to hire everybody at $2 or $3 above minimum wage. And we want these subsidies to bring in these jobs. So everybody bends. They give them all these subsidies. They hire everybody at these wages, but they don't have to pay any taxes. Because they don't have to pay any taxes, they can lower their rates on anything. Doesn't matter whether they're a major corporate hardware store. Doesn't matter if they're a major corporate grocery store. Doesn't matter if they're a major corporate clothing store. Doesn't matter if they're a major corporate where maybe they have some of these different things all combined. But then they run out all the mom and pop jobs. They run all these mom and pop businesses out of business. It takes them 3 to 4 years and all the mom and pop businesses went out of business. Now all of a sudden, they're hiring everybody part-time at minimum wage. And we all pick up the bill. Because these people that used to make $2 or $3 above minimum wage, they're all gone now. They got rid of all those people. And now they're hiring everybody part-time, paying them minimum wage, teaching them at work how to apply for food stamps, how to apply for this government program, how to apply for that government program. That's all part of the training package. I used to work for one of these companies. Big old smiley face. Not going to call him out by name. And that's how the tax code is written. Because the tax code is written by corporate lawyers with corporate lobbyists to run all the competition out. Now, it's been really difficult in the trucking industry to do this. The trucking industry is really its own animal. But they're slowly gaining a foothold. And they're going to get to this point where the scales are going to finally tip in their favor, and then it's going to take off. Just like it has for these big corporate box stores that run all the mom and pop businesses out. It's going to get to that point where the scales are finally going to completely tilt in the favor of the corporations, just like it has in retail. And so that's why, even though for them right now, fighting for a driver minimum wage is in their benefit because it's going to drive up rates, they don't want to do it. The reason they don't want to do it is because by driving up rates, it's going to benefit the mom and pop, like what I'm contracted with. It's a small company. I love the people I work with. They're great people. It's the last company I'm ever going to drive a truck for. Most likely this year is probably going to be the last truck I'm ever going to be in. And it's not because of them. I'm just tired of the industry. I'm tired. Not going to get into all that, but it's just everything within the industry. Even though I work for really great people, I love the people I work for. I really feel like I'm part of the family. And when I leave, I'm really going to It's really going to hurt when I leave. Gotta be honest. I'm just tired. I'm burnt out. I'm worn out. I got an exit strategy. It's about a 2-year strategy, but I got an exit strategy, and I'm just done driving a truck. I'm just burnt out. But it's going to help companies like them. It's going to help the owner-operator, because what's going to happen is it's going to drive up rates. And the problem with driving up rates comes to our tax code. When you're in a corporation, it's really easy to take advantage of the profit loss worksheet. Basically, it's somewhere between, figure the bigger the corporation, the lower you can go with this, but it's pretty much around 60%, 70%. For a big mom and pop, it's 80 to 85%. I'm talking a big mom and pop. I'm talking about a company then in the trucking industry. You're probably looking at 200 trucks, 300 trucks. You need that 80 to 85% where your trucks are all making money. They need to be making at average and above. But you can make money by losing money, because you're taking these contracts where you're going to be losing money. So let's say like you're a company with 300 trucks. You're a big mom and pop. So you need that 80 to 85% where of your trucks making money. But you have 15 to 20% where you can take advantage of the write-off for losses, which means you can take contracts that make you look good to investors because all your trucks are operating. And because all those trucks are operating and they're on this contract where you're pretty much working for fuel. That's all you're working for is fuel. You're working for the cost of doing business. You're getting covered for your fuel, you're getting covered for your cost of the truck, and you're getting covered for the cost of your driver, but you're not making any profit, and you're losing money actually. So it's a tax write-off. But because it's a tax write-off, in the end, your books still look good. Because you're not showing a real loss, because by the time you pay your taxes, you're still in the black. But it also lets you get your trucks moved around and you're getting them into places. So it's not the same 15% of trucks that are always losing money. It's the fact that 15% of your business is losing money. But it's the way the trucking industry is different from any other industry. The bigger your corporation, the more you can afford to lose. A major company, a big company like J.B. Hunt, they can afford to have a 40% of their trucks at any time losing money, because they got contracts out there that are making so much money that it picks up most of that 40% slack, and then the rest of their trucks are putting them all the way over here in the black, so they're making money hands over fist. And then they get the big tax write-off for their loss. The mom and pop that only has even 100 trucks or less, they can't take advantage of that the same way, which means they get run completely out of business. Even companies with 200 trucks are getting run completely out of business because they can't take advantage of that tax code. That's why we live in a quasi-fascist economy. And that's what people don't understand about our economy. It's crony capitalism. We do not live in a free market. In a free market, that wouldn't happen. In a free market, you have to completely mismanage your business on a practical front. Not by sitting here and manipulating how you're going to play with the tax code and what you're going to do with this and how you're going to roll it. Not by doing all that, just by running a fair, straightforward, honest business. You just have to be bad at management to lose in a free market capitalist environment. We do not live in that environment. We had pretty much my whole life. I mean, it's gotten worse and worse and worse the older I got. When I was younger, it was still more towards the free capitalist side, but by the time I was in my 20s, I started really living in a quasi-fascist market. By the time I was in my 30s, I was living in a full-blown fascist market, quasi-fascist market, and it's only getting worse. Eventually, we're just going to live in a full fascist market. We're not going to live in a free market economy. We're going to live in a fascist economy here in America. We're going to live right on the edge of a fascist market, I should say. I don't think we're ever going to be to the point where the government's going to completely take over business, but they're getting more and more involved through regulation to take over corporate. And it's not even that the corporations are against it. It's a partnership between the government and corporate. That's why it's a quasi-fascist. In a true fascist market, the government just takes over the corporation. We live in a system where the corporations and the governments are partnering. That's why, but it's a backdoor fascist approach to our economy. And that's why the trucking industry won't fight for a driver minimum wage. Because, for example, let's say you have, basically you have loads out here right now that are paying 75 cents, 85 cents, $1.05 a mile. To run these trucks, even as an owner-operator, to run this truck, I think you're looking at $1, at a minimum, I think you're looking at $1.10, $1.15 a mile. It might be more now because of the insurance. But let's say it's $1.10, $1.15 a mile. That's how you're getting run out of business, is through the tax code. Because the corporations can take advantage of that tax code, and somebody with one or two trucks, they can't afford to lose money on any of the trucks. And they're just getting run out of business. If they brought a driver minimum wage in, that would still reflect the rate for the owner-operator. So even if you have one truck, you're the owner-operator, you're driving your truck. If they have where the minimum wage on average is 75 cents, like I said, let's say they did it on a tier where, you're starting drivers, this is their minimum wage, minimum driver, 5-year driver, this is their wage, and 10-year plus, there's this wage. So they tiered it. Let's say they even tiered it like that. If to have a driver in the truck on average is going to cost you, let's say, 75 to 80 cents a mile, then that means the rates are automatically going to have to go up to where they're $2 or $3 a mile. Minimum $2 or $3 a mile. An owner-operator with one truck that he's paid off, somebody's really smart, they went out, they buy a 10-year-old truck, pay cash for it, just completely own their truck outright. If they're making $4 $4 or $5 a mile, they're rolling in the dough. They're going to be doing really good because the truck is completely paid off. They haven't fallen for this scam where they're told, oh no, you need to finance the truck because by financing the truck you get the tax write-off. And this is when you're only talking about having a small fleet where you only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trucks, cash is the way to go. You pay your truck completely off. You let the truck make all the money it can. You put 10 to 15% of the truck's income into a savings account for a breakdown and all that, and you'll never lose money on that truck. When you get to the point where you now have the money to pay $100,000 for a truck, then that's where you say, well, instead of buying one truck for $100,000, I'm going to go and I'm going to get 2 or 3 trucks. Say you get 2 trucks and you put $50,000 on each of those trucks, and then you finance the rest, but you got 2 more drivers working for you. You got trucks that are cheaper to run, cheaper to maintain, da-da-da-da-da. That's how you build your business. But until you get to the point where you can pretty much buy a truck outright, a brand new truck outright, your used trucks, you want to pay them cash outright. It's just the best way to go. That's a scam. They're going to tell you that, oh no, you're going to get all these tax benefits and da-da-da. The tax benefits aren't worth it. They're really not. No matter what anybody tells you, the tax benefits of financing a truck are not worth it at all. Because anybody who's been in this industry for more than 5 years, you understand how unpredictable this industry is. Financing a truck is a really bad idea. Even we went through this high for 2 years where everybody was making money fist over fist. They went out, they financed all these trucks, and you have these big companies where, they were doing great with 75 trucks. They start making money fist over fist. They're like, you know what? Let's go out and buy 100 trucks. Now they got to close their doors. Completely out of business. Yeah, financing a truck, that's a whole... Until you get to the point where you're making enough money on the trucks you have to buy one truck brand new, completely outright, you don't want to finance a truck. You want to buy your truck outright. Even now, I can go on and I can find good, reliable trucks that are 10 years old, 8 years old, and get them for $15,000 to $20,000. You buy a truck like that, even if it only lasts you 4 or 5 years. 4 or 5 years, you didn't have any interest cost on the truck. Everything you made was profit on the truck. Any cost that you had to put back into the truck, and it's even worth your while to rebuild the engine in the truck and things like that and make it run even longer. But you go out and you buy a truck, 8 to 10 years old, you make enough money, you buy another truck that's 8 or 10 years old, then you put a driver in that truck. Now you got 2 trucks making money. One, because you're the driver, you're the owner-operator of the company, you're making, everything is pretty much 100% profit, other than the cost of the truck itself. And the other one, you're making a lower profit rate, but you're still making a profit on that one. Then you could buy a truck within half the time that it took you for your last truck. So now you're buying another truck. You put another driver in that truck. Now, in a year, you can buy another truck. Or maybe even, 6 months, you could buy another truck. That's how you build the company. You just buy older trucks cash outright. Do not let anyone con you into that whole, oh no, the financing is a tax write-off. That's how you ruin your company. When you get to the point where in 6 months to a year, you can make enough money to buy a brand new truck outright. Then you wait the year, you put that money in a CD, let it make you some interest, and put 25%, 30%, 40%, 50% down on the brand new truck. And you got the money to cover it in a CD. So that if the market goes really bad and you're about to lose everything, even if I would personally use a CD where I'm rolling it over every 6 months, maybe even 3 months, depending on what I see going on in the market. But that money is there. So if you do it with a 3 month, it's not so bad because your fees will be, if something really disastrous happens, your fees will be lower when you got to cash it out early. But you could pay that brand new truck right off. Everything just went to shit. You pay your truck off, you get out from underneath it, you roll through all the shit, then get on the other side, things start picking up again, you put the money for a brand new truck back into a CD again, then you build up the money to make the down payment on a brand new truck, and you go and you buy another brand new truck. That's how you build a trucking company. But like I said, this industry is very different than any other industry. But today it's really hard to do that because, like I said, it's the way the tax code is written. And the corporations and the corporate unions are corporations now. Unions are not, the unions of today are not my dad's union. The unions of today are not my grandfather's, definitely not my grandfather's union. Or my great-grandfather's union. Hell, my great-grandfather's union, actually, that's a whole other, that's where they just beat the hell out of you. My grandfather's union, too, just beat the hell out of you. But, you know, my dad's union was a little bit different. The union from my dad's era was a little bit more relaxed. But the unions of today are not the unions of my forefathers at all. Because they're not interested in watching out for me. Because they're corporate unions. They're interested in their bottom line. Don't believe me? Go ask the railroad workers how their union worked out for them. They pay all that money to the union. How's that union working out? I've never worked in an honest union. I've worked in 5 or 6 unions, and I've never, ever worked in an honest union. That's why it's not that I want to be anti-union. I actually think if I have an idea for a union that, if I created a union, I know how I'd want it to run. And I'd want it to run that way because of my experiences with unions. But I would never join a union today. I wouldn't go to work for UPS knowing I have to join a union. That's why I've had job offers from companies that have offered me really good money with really good benefits, and then I find out it's a union company. I'm like, nah, nope, I don't want no part of it. I want no part of a union. I have never worked for an honest union, and I am not giving a union my hard-earned money to throw me under the bus when it's convenient for them. Or, as the railroad workers, throw me under the train when it's convenient for them. But maybe it's time for the mom and pops and even the owner-operators. Like I said, even though the owner-operators, they won't, because basically they're a business owner, so, their income is a whole different thing, so they're not going to see the benefit through the wage per se. But because the rates are going to go up, they're going to reap the benefits still. So maybe it's time for the owner-operators and the mom and pops to all get together and actually say, hey, we want a minimum wage in this industry. I mean, in the end, everybody wins. The drivers win. They get more money. The owner-operator wins. They get more money. Mom and pops win. They get more money. The corporations, they win. They're not going to win the way they want to win, because the way they want to win is by running the mom and pops and owner-operators out. That's what they really want. But financially, they still win. So everybody wins in the end. Because rates have no choice but to go up. Because the corporations aren't going to keep taking all the cheap freight that they're taking now. Which means the owner-operators could put their nose up to it too. Mom and pops, they could put their nose up to it too. Everybody going to put their nose up to it. Because they're going to be like, nah, I can't. I'm paying the driver 75 cents a mile. The truck is costing me 75 cents a mile to operate. And you want me to do this for 80 cents a mile? Everybody's going to say that. And like I said, the corporations, they can afford, 30 to 40% of their fleet losing money at any one time. But they can't afford 60% of their fleet losing money at any one time. It's going to run them out of business. So nobody's going to take the cheap freight anymore. So it's really beneficial to everybody. The mom and pop, the owner-operator, the driver, and the corporations, even though not to their benefit the way that they want it to be to their benefit. So what? They're making money. What are the 95% of us supposed to cry for the corporations because they can't run us out of business? Poor you. Look at you. You're making money over hands over fist, and you can't run me out of business. Oh, you poor corporation. We got to do something for the poor corporation. Yeah, right. Maybe it's time.